my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Caitlin's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Caitlin's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Caitlin's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636. Locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Caitlin's Glass, the clear choice.
I want to share something that's become a big part of the BeTempered mission, Patreon. Now, if you've never used it before, Patreon is a platform where we can build community together. It's not just about supporting the podcast. It's about having a space where we can connect on a deeper level, encourage one another, and walk this journey of faith, resilience, and perseverance side by side. Here's how it works. You can join as a free member and get access to daily posts, behind-the-scenes updates, encouragement, and some things I don't always put out on other platforms. And if you feel called to support the mission financially, there are different levels where you can do that too. That support helps us keep producing the podcast, creating gear, hosting events, and sharing stories that we believe can truly impact lives. And here's the cool part. Patreon has a free app you can download right on your phone. It works just like Facebook or Instagram, but it's built specifically for our community. You'll be able to scroll through posts, watch videos, listen to content, and interact with others who are on the same journey. At the end of the day, this isn't just about content, it's about connection. It's about building something together, not just me and Ben putting out episodes, but a family of people committed to growing stronger through real stories and real faith. So whether you just want to hop on as a free member or you feel called to support in a bigger way, Patreon is the door into that community. Because at the heart of BeTempered has always been simple, real stories, raw truth, resilient faith, so that even one person out there that hears what they need to hear, and Patreon helps make that possible.
Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, where we explore the art of finding balance in a chaotic world.
Join us as we delve into insightful conversations, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience.
We're your host, Dan Schmidt and
Ben Spahr.
Let's embark on a journey to live our best lives.
This is BeTempered.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, episode number
93.
Great job, Ben.
Thank you. 7 away from a hundo.
We're close.
Very close.
That's coming. Amazing. Hey, there are moments in life that divide everything into two parts, before and after. Dennis Lemming is a man who knows exactly where that line exists. At 69 years old, Dennis has lived a life rooted in service, faith, and purpose. A longtime resident of Xenia, Ohio, he spent decades serving others as a firefighter and chaplain, running towards danger while helping people find peace in their most uncertain moments. He's also dedicated his career as a tool and die maker, quietly building a life defined by discipline, consistency, and care for others. But Dennis's story isn't just about the emergencies he's responded to. It's about the one he never saw coming. What was supposed to be a backpacking trip with his daughter was postponed due to circumstances outside of their control. When they finally returned to the trail, something didn't feel right. What began as discomfort turned into a series of events, guided by listening, discernment, and the urging of those around him, that ultimately led to the discovery neither Dennis nor his family expected. Within a matter of hours, Dennis went from simply trying to understand what was wrong to realizing his life had been spared for something that could have ended very differently. Moments like that change a person. They deepen your gratitude. They sharpen your perspective. They remind you that none of us are in control the way we think we are. This story is a powerful reminder that purpose doesn't end, faith doesn't waver, and sometimes the interruptions in our plans are the very things that save our lives. Dennis Lemming, welcome to the BeTempered podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thanks for making the trek this morning on this foggy morning. Here we just came out of the freezer, right? We were in the zeros, negatives, cold. And then I think this week we're supposed to be 50s and 60s. Mm-hmm. And so the snow's melting. We've got a nice fog in the air. So
yes,
it was a nice drive over from Xenia.
Yes, it was. Just a little foggy.
Yeah.
I've seen worse, but it wasn't too bad. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thanks again for being here. I know your story that I know of is remarkable. And, and that's basically what's just happened in the last year of your life. And I don't even know anything beyond that. So I'm excited for you to share with us your wisdom, your faith, and all the things that helped you get through, especially this past year. But how we like to start every podcast is start from the beginning. So if you would, tell us what life was like for you growing up as a kid.
My life growing up as a child was, for me, I didn't know any different. I mean, it was just, to me, a normal life. It was challenging in the aspect of, it was me and my dad, my mom, and my brother. My brother's 5 years older than me. And my dad passed when I was 4 years old. And so that left me and my mom and my brother. I had a half-sister that played a large part in our family and was very helpful. But growing up without a dad had its challenges. We didn't have much money. Matter of fact, after our dad passed, the only thing we had to live on was Social Security, and my mom went to doing housework. And so I don't look back on my life as a child and have any regrets. I know God always has a plan and is always in control. Do I question God of why my dad passed when I was 4? I don't. I trust God fully and completely and 100%. And what it made me do as a young boy at 4 growing up, you have to learn to do things. You have to learn how to fix things. Things today that most people wouldn't even dare to begin to do. They would just call a professional. And so we didn't have that income, and we didn't have to do those types of things. And so it had its challenges. Times the house was cold in the winter, especially back when I was a young boy. We started off heating with coal. And so it had its challenges, but like I said, God was good, and God watched over us and kept us and always met our needs. I remember as time went on, a few years later, my mom started me and my brother back to church on Sunday school on a Sunday school bus. And as a young boy, I didn't know it, but that's where my mom and dad and we all went as a family. Because what happened when my dad passed, my mom didn't know how to drive, so the only way we had of any traveling was to have somebody else do it for us. So the Sunday school bus picked us up, took us back to Sunday school on Sundays, and that was a big, important part of my life. Plus, also growing up in the southern part of Ohio, where my mom's family was from. I remember as a young boy, one of my mom's brother, my uncle, he kind of took that place of my dad and taught me a lot, and I spent a great deal of time with him. Matter of fact, I grew up on his sawmill a lot in the southern part of Ohio. I don't remember, of course, I didn't go there when I was 4, but I remember I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and I started on the sawmill helping them. And I think back today, and I think, if I wouldn't let my child do what my mom allowed me to do, but back then it was quite custom. You're riding on a bulldozer up in the woods and your feet dangling over these tracks to pull logs out of the woods, and you're barking railroad ties and doing various things like that. And you might say, by today's, they'd call that child labor, but back then it was just normal. And I had so many wonderful experiences doing that and spending time with my uncle. And the big change in my life happened when I was 12 years old. Which happened to be March the 2nd, 1969, when I gave my heart to the Lord at a little church there on the road they all lived on, the Chennis Fork Road in Pike County, Ohio. It's no longer a church, it's a house, but the building is still there. That's when God really did a work in my life and changed me completely. Because I remember as a young boy, I had a very bad temper. I would get upset very easily and lash out. And sometimes my mom had to use the rod of correction to teach me that wasn't the way to behave. But when I was 12 and I gave my heart to the Lord just did a marvelous work in my life. And he became my closest friend, which he still is today, and just made an impact in my life that has changed me forever. Because even as a young man growing up, even after that, temptation still showed itself. I mean, the devil's always trying to get you to turn your back on God and follow him instead. And I had those challenging times in my life when the devil would come at me. And I always give thanks to the Lord about it because he spared me from so many marks of sin as a young boy. I had an unusual opportunities in school because I went to the elementary school in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Then I went to their junior high school. And when I was getting ready to leave there in the 8th grade and go into high school, they asked me about going to the vocational school in outside of Yellow Springs. It was part of Greene County. I said, sure. So I went there in the 9th grade and started in the machine shop, tool crib, working there. And so I did that in the 9th grade. Well, for some reason or another, and I always say God has a plan. By the end of that year, they come and want to know if I wanted to go into the junior machine trade class in my junior year. So by the time I finished my sophomore year, or junior year, I apologize, in school, I had taken the junior and senior machine trades class and graduated at the age of 16.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's awful young to go into the workforce, but that's what I done. And God blessed me and watched over me. And I worked at a small factory for a year there, a little town called Cedarville. And then I given the opportunity to go back to Yellow Springs and work at another company there called Renee Labs for 31 years before they closed the door. And of course, between all that time, there was a lot of events that transpired. I got married, had 2 children, had bought my second home by that time. And so there's a lot of things that changed during that period of time. And so my wife and I, we'd been involved in church for many years. I've pastored church and also am a minister besides that. I got involved in the local fire department where we live at now. And my mom came and lived with us after we moved into our new home and was there a chaplain and a firefighter EMT for 18 years and saw a lot. Some things you wish you'd never seen. And at the same time, some things you're really thankful for that you was able to help people because you just never know the circumstances you're going to get into and how God will bring them about to help other people, to minister to people. And that's what life is all about, is ministering and helping one another. So God has really blessed me in so many ways. And of course, my mom has passed on. My wife and I are still there. A few years ago, one of the gentlemen from the fire department called me and wanted to know if I wanted to come back. And so at the age of 68, I went back to the fire department. Now I'm a firefighter and their chaplain once again. So God's been good to me and done a lot of things in my life, and I really appreciate all he's done.
That's amazing. I always have questions for, EMTs, police officers, firefighters, because like you had briefly mentioned, there's things you've seen that you wish you hadn't seen, and there's other things that you're glad you were a part of. So a question I always think of, because I know there's things in my life that I've seen that it's like, man, I wish I wouldn't have seen that, because you have that locked in your mind. As an EMT, as a firefighter, being a part of, I'm sure some pretty horrific scenes that you've seen. How do you work through that? How do you get through when you come upon a scene that is just devastating? How do you get through that in your mind?
Well, one of the things is they train you on the fire department how to deal with that. You deal with the moment. As a firefighter and EMT, whichever one of those type of events it might be, and sometimes you're involved in both, whether it's a car accident, you might be administering physical aid to somebody, and also the next thing be helping to open up a car to get them out. They train you to put your emotions behind you. You focus on that moment and minister care to that person. Thankfully, with training and the Lord's help, I've always been able to do that. It's afterwards when those emotions hit you that, once again, I've found that just go away and me and the Lord talk about it. And a lot of times that requires tissue from crying and weeping before the Lord and thanking God that you were able to be there to help people. You may not always seen the end of like you wanted to, where somebody has survived, but you're thankful that you're still there, be able to help the family. As a chaplain, that's a lot of what it amounts to. I can't change the events. I can't change what has happened, but I'm there to speak to them, to encourage them, to pray with them or whatever the need might be. So to get through that's a big thing, is you put your emotion aside, you focus on that moment, helping that individual, whatever it might be. And I've always found that works. It's later when the emotions hit you. I'll never forget the first, what we call it, code that happened on Thanksgiving Day. It was my first event to ever go out on like that. And I remember going to the home. We worked the gentleman, got him in the squad. We got a heartbeat back, got him to the hospital, and took him into the hospital. Then we went back to the department, and I went back home, and I got home, and I walked through the door, and my wife spoke to me, and I said, I need a moment. And that's when I went, and the tears flowed, and the prayers went out. And so you never forget. I've never forgot my first one. And so that's how you get through it. That's how I get through it. That's where people that don't have Christ in their life, I often wonder how they deal with it. We do have what they call critical stress debriefings that we can also go to when there's a very tragic event where specifically it might have been a child that has died, and we've had that to happen. That's the most tragic thing of all that you'll experience. So you do have those where you can get together and you have counselors that come and meet with you and help you to deal with your emotions, your feelings, and look through the circumstances. And you learn from that too, of what you may be able to do different in other circumstances. But the thing is, no two events is ever the same. So everything is new, and that's where you go back on all your training, because we continuously train monthly on how to handle circumstances and things to do.
Well, not only for you to be able to rely on your faith to get through those difficult times, but as a chaplain, I'm sure there's times where you're not just comforting that family or whoever was in that situation, but some of the men and women that you're working with, the EMTs and the firefighters and things like that. You do. And, I commend you for that, because that's no doubt not an easy thing. So thank you for that.
Glad to do it.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.
What made you want to do from tool and die over to the fire department?
Well, the fire department has always been a volunteer. So, and people may say, well, you're just a volunteer, but it's a challenge in the fact that you're always a volunteer. When you're on a full-time fire department, you have a shift you work, and then you go home. As a volunteer to your community, I've left my wife standing at gas stations. I've jumped off the mower in the yard to go. You get up out of bed in the middle of the night to go out on a EMS or fire run. So it was just to be a service to my community is what it was. And my brother, he kept trying to get me for years. He was a firefighter before I was. He tried to get me to do it, and the timing just wasn't right. And once we got our home built and kind of got established in the community, I decided it was time to do that. And like I said, when I went on, originally I was just a firefighter. Then I worked myself into EMS. And then later on, our chief come to me and wanted to know if I wanted to be the chaplain. And so absolutely. And of course, then it got really tough with time and everything when I'm still working a job. And of course, they do have laws that protect you from losing your job if you are miss work because of doing service to the community and the fire service as well. So that's kind of how I got into it. And it's been a tremendous experience. They teach you things that you would never know otherwise. It teaches you how to deal with emergency circumstances. It builds your confidence. It just helps you in so many different ways to deal with everyday life experiences. Yeah,
that's awesome. It's even more impressive that it's volunteering. I mean, you're working a full-time job and then
raising a family,
raising a family. Yeah. And then anytime you can get that call where it's time to go.
Yeah.
No matter how tired you are from work or any of that, it's somebody's life depends on it.
Yeah. We've had so many calls in the past. I don't do the EMS right now, where in the middle of the night, we'd get a call, get back to the fire department, tone would drop again. You get back home, tone would drop again. And you have your specific squad nights. So that squad night, you've made a commitment to be home and to run those runs. And you're absolutely correct. Yeah. And, a lot of times you do those runs and you go to work the next day. And so it's just a wonderful blessing to be of service to other people, because people in an emergency situation that don't know how to handle things, they depend upon you, and you get there and you help them and whatever. And it just brings a calmness to people that you're there. When you walk through the door, they know help is there. And so it is a tremendous blessing. It truly is.
Servant leadership.
Yep.
That's exactly what that is. That's amazing. So at some point in your life, we were talking earlier, you started getting into backpacking, and you'd mentioned you'd always been pretty healthy and pretty fit throughout your life. But backpacking came into your life. Sure. Talk about that, and then we'll get into the story where I learned about you.
Okay. Backpacking, actually got into backpacking in my very early 40s. Our daughter was going to a private school in Xenia, and they were selling magazines. And I looked at magazines, and of course, being a hunter, when you've read one hunting magazine, you kind of read them all. So I'm like, I don't want. So they had this one called Backpacker. And I got that subscription to them. And then I started looking through the magazine and saw these beautiful pictures and various places you could go and see things that I had never seen before. And so that really instilled a hunger in me to go. And I can't remember exactly how. I'd probably seen a picture of the boundary waters of Minnesota, which is 1.2 million acres of nothing but pure wilderness. And the church we were attending to at that time, I went to this one young lady in the church. I said, I'm looking for somebody to go backpacking on a canoeing trip as well, where you have to carry your gear, portage from one lake to another. And she pointed me to this young man, and we're still very close friends today. And so our first trip was a backpacking canoeing trip, where you carry your gear, like I just said, between portaging spots to spots, and you paddle the large lakes in Minnesota, which are very big lakes. Mm-hmm. And so I got involved in that, and just that continued to getting into backpacking trips with other guys from the church as well. We had a group that was called the Clifty Wilderness Boys of men. And we just had so many wonderful experiences going different places into West Virginia, Kentucky, back to Minnesota several times. Just God so blessed us with a friendship that I had not known like that before, where you go out and you stay with this group of guys for days on end or a week on ends. And you talk about God, and what's so amazing to me through all of the trips that we were on and the hours that we spent together, we never had no spats, no arguments, no nothing. And so it's just a God-given experience to me to be able to go to places and do the things I have with these my buddies that there's still talk about going. But unfortunately, life has its way to catch up with us at times. And so today we find it's a little bit more challenging than what it was back 30 years ago.
Yeah. What's your favorite place you've been backpacking?
Well, just straight backpacking would probably been Shenandoah National Park.
Yeah.
We've been to Dolly Sods in West Virginia a lot. That's a wilderness area, just a true wilderness area, which has a tremendous history to itself. During World War II, that was a bombing site where they went in to test bombs, and you still can find unexploded bombs out there, so they warn you of that. That was a beautiful, rugged place. You just kind of camp anywhere you want to. Of course, you have to drink creek water. There's no bathrooms out there, so you pretty much know how you figure out to take care of that. So those have been some beautiful places that we have went. But Shenandoah National Park was actually the first backpacking trip we all took together for a week. And it was just beautiful. We went to the water falls they have there in the park. Those are gorgeous. It's such a beautiful park.
So you're hiking on the Appalachian Trail there?
Yeah, on the Appalachian Trail there. Now, when you go to places like Dolly Sods, now you're hiking on established trails, but they're not the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah. That's amazing. I've been there. It is a beautiful area for sure, Shenandoah National Park. So get into, the backpacking leads you into this last year, and talk about kind of the progression where you got your daughter involved to start backpacking, kind of how that came about, and then what came from that.
My daughter and I, of course, she's always been somewhat of a daddy's girl. Growing up when she was very young, if I was outside, she was right on my heels. if I was in the garage working on a vehicle, she was right out there with me. And so her and I have always been extremely close. And the guys and I went on the backpacking trips. We kind of had a rule. It was a guys only. And so as time moved on, and as I said, life has its challenges where your health's not what it used to be. Some of the other guys couldn't go. Like I still wanted to go. I mean, I still have that same hunger and desire to go as I did when I first started. That's never left me. And some of the other guys, different changes in their lives, and I was looking for somebody to go. My son-in-law, my daughter's husband, he went with me several times. And I just, one day I said, I'm going to ask her because I know she likes to be outside and enjoy things. And she was always very interested in it and asked me questions. So I asked her, and of course, without hesitation, she said yes. And I said, well, we have to get in physical shape for this. And she did. She worked very hard at it. And she started joining the Y and various things. And I was working out during this period of time in my basement in a gym, getting myself in shape to go because I knew it. It's a challenge. It's not just you're not walking through a mall or someplace like that. So her and I had planned on going in September of 24 in 2024. Which was the same year that Hurricane Helene came up through the United States and up through the Carolinas and into Virginia. And so I remember I sit down on my workbench that Monday morning before we were going to leave later that week, and I seen that the hurricane was coming up through there, and I'm like, oh, Lord. So I knew I had to call her and let her be known, this is something we need to consider. So, she said, well, let's just watch it and see. Maybe it won't come that far. Of course, everybody knows that it did. It did a tremendous devastation up in that area, which her and I found out later on. So we postponed it. And, during that period of time, we were both very much disappointed. We bought a lot of gear and spent a lot of time getting in shape, physical shape to go, and knowing that really would be the last opportunity we would have that year to go. And based upon the devastation, the trails were closed, and so they weren't going to open back up for quite a while. So that's what caused us to postpone it till April the following year.
Well, not only were the trails closed, but I mean, they had interstates completely, bridges completely torn out. We interviewed the guy that hiked for his daughter's wedding. That happened the wedding was like the next day.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name. You probably can't either.
I read the story.
Yeah. So you saw the story. So we interviewed him, and he went into the details of the devastation.
Mm-hmm.
And so not just the trails, but the interstates, all the roads. I mean, all the mudslides, all those things that occurred from all that. So it gets postponed and you decide you're going in April.
Yeah, we was going to go the latter part of April of 25. And so me and her, once again, we stayed prepared, got prepared, even more so, give us a little more time to, work out more and get ready. And we very much worked on our gear to get our weight down because when you're young and, you don't really think so much about the weight. I remember when I first did it, my pack weight was at 60-some pounds. Oh. Yeah. And, you're young, so I'll carry it. So you did, but it was hard. Well, when you get, older, it even becomes harder and new equipments come out and various things. So you spend a lot of money and it can be very expensive to go on. So her and I, we planned it out. We planned it out to go to Grayson Highland State Park, which was the same place we were going to go in 24 because that's where they have the wild ponies. And she wanted to see the ponies. She's always so much loved animals. So we went there. And we left on a Wednesday. We drove down and stayed at a little town called Damascus, which is referred to as, I believe, the friendliest town on the Appalachian Trail. And we so much enjoyed getting there. Of course, in April, not everything is open. So we stayed there the night at a very old hotel that's there. I think there was her and I, our 2 rooms, and there was, I think, 2 other individuals there. So they only had 4 rooms occupied in this hotel. So they keep it open like that for early people to come out. So we got up and left on a Thursday morning to go into Grayson Highland State Park and to Mount Rogers recreational area. We had it all planned out. The majority of it was going to be on the Appalachian Trail. And so we got there. I felt great. She felt great. Like I said, it was her actually first backpacking trip. And so we started off, and of course it rained, and it rained, and it rained. And we're like, oh Lord, of course we had rain jackets and various things, you put on, and rain suits. But I found if you put them on after it starts to rain, you're still wet. So, and the trails that you had turned into little streams. And it's what's so wonderful about going out like this is, based on the Appalachian Trail, you meet so many different people. And everybody you meet pretty much has a smile on their face. And where we were at, I think it's a little over 500 miles from I think it's Springer Mountain in Georgia where it starts, and these people have got a smile on their face. They're so happy to be out there. And the views are wonderful there where her and I was at. Even though it was raining, it was a slight drizzle for the most part, and a little foggy, which I'm just one of those individuals. It can be a cloudy day, a sunny day, rainy, or snow. It's just beautiful. I don't say this just to fill in, but it's part of God's creation, and I just love it. And there it was, and here we were, and we hiked that first day, did about 16 miles, and was trying to find some place to stay. And so we got into this one wooded area that was flat, and it was late in the day, and I was my legs were swelling, and they were both of them beginning to hurt, which had never happened before. And I'd never had any trouble at all hiking before. So we found a camp spot, and we set up camp. And she was fairly damp. And, of course, our sleeping bags got a little damp as well. So she come out of her tent. We'd only been there about half an hour and got her tents up. And she had this look on her face that she was had some anxiety. And it was we were there all by ourselves in this spot, nobody else around for miles. And so I got a fire going and warmed us up, and that really made her and me both feel good, better. It just does. And so we got a fire going, got a warmth around the fire, dried out our clothes a little bit, and got a bite to eat. And so all that made me feel better. So I was telling her about how my legs was bothering me. And she said, well, Dad, it's probably your sciatic nerve. And so I did some stretches there and various things, and it was a little painful, but not really too bad. So we had a decent night's sleep and got up the next morning and got everything packed up, and off the trail we went again. So the next day, even though some of it was downhill, which if you've been on the Appalachian Trail, very much, at least in Virginia, you're either going up or going down. Yeah. There's really no level spots anywhere. And you can go off on some side trails, and they might be, but most of the Appalachian Trail in that area is either up or down. It's very rocky. And I was concerned about her, naturally, and my daughter. I don't want you to fall because, you fall and could really hurt yourself. And thankful the good Lord, neither one of us ever fell. And she did just absolutely wonderful. I was a little embarrassed because this is her first trip out, and she's doing better than I am. And so the next day was even more challenging, and we hiked down the Appalachian Trail, crossed, and come up another side, and then we come up to one of the huts you stay out. I don't remember the name of the hut, but I was in so much pain with my legs just hurting. It got to the point where my left leg was hurting so bad I could not use it to lift my body. Every time I come to a spot, which is every other step, I'd have to use my right leg to lift my weight. And of course, I had a hiking pole or a hiking stick, however you want to call it, trekking pole. And she had hers as well, but I was having to stop to rest my body because it was just so painful and it hurt so much. And I was taking ibuprofen and things like that to help deal with the pain, but it really wasn't doing no good. They swelled up so bad that I couldn't hardly even bend my knees, which once again had never happened to me before. So we stayed there that night, that trail hut, which on the Appalachian Trail is required. It was a very nice area. Her and I got our tent set up just before there came a big downpour of rain. And we didn't see any animals to speak of on the Appalachian Trail or anything like that. You've seen some squirrels and various things, but we got up the next morning and started off. And of course, it was all uphill. That would have been on a Saturday, our last day. And so as we're hiking out, same thing again. I couldn't hardly use my left leg for anything because of it. It was just very, very painful. So we was able to hike out that day. I think we did about 5 miles, and we got out for a total of, I think, 34 to 35 miles, which is quite a ways to hike. But also when you're in the pain that I'm in, I did a lot of praying, a lot of praying with that. And so we got out of there and got to our vehicle. Of course, it was good to be able to sit down, and so we had kind of planned originally just to drive on home that day, but her and I both was very tired. My legs would bother me. We decided when we found us a hotel, and we got separate rooms that night, and we stayed there in the room. And I notified my wife and was telling her about, what was going on with me. Had, at that point, no idea that there was something else more than just my legs hurting that was causing me some problems.
So you head home.
Yeah.
And your wife, obviously, I'm sure, is concerned and you're concerned because you're the one feeling the pain.
Yeah.
Did the swelling go down? Like the next mornings you'd start back up, did the swelling go down, or did it stay the same?
No, it really didn't. It would go down very, very little. So it just continued to get worse and worse. We got home, and I went to a couple doctors, the unusual thing about it was they never really checked me over. They never palpated my abdomen. And so in the process of them not palpating my abdomen, they didn't really find or detect anything else. One doctor prescribed me Celebrex, which is an anti-inflammatory. Another doctor prescribed me a water pill to try to get rid of the swelling, which still didn't help. And so I have kind of my wit's end. The swelling did eventually go down, but my leg hurt so bad once I got home, because we live on a tri-level, excuse me, going up the stairs was like my muscles was just pulling apart, just ripping apart. Couldn't hardly work. I mean, I'd go to work and it was embarrassing to try to walk in and out the door because they were just in so much pain. So in talking with my daughter, and she has some medical training as well, she said, well, Dad, why don't you go to my chiropractor and see him? And she told me about him, even though he's 50 miles away. She just recommended him so highly. I'm like, and she told me, she said, well, he's a Christian man too, which, is a plus. So I went to him, and in the process of going to him, he did an evaluation of me. And so after 3 visits, things didn't get any better. It just, nothing seemed to get better. I wouldn't say it got worse, but nothing got better. I was struggling to, it was really difficult. And so at that same time was when Kettering Health Networks had our cyber attack. And of course, they was just almost shut down. So I went to him, and I can't remember, it was on a Thursday or a Friday. He had made comments, he said, well, what about doing an MRI? I'm like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I need to figure out what's going on here. He said, well, I know there's a place in Kettering or Centerville that does MRIs. It's an independent place. You pay for it out of pocket. And he told me how much it was. I said, well, that's probably cheaper than insurance. Mm-hmm. So he put in the order for that. Once again, I said, I can't remember if it's a Thursday or a Friday. I wanted to say Friday, but what was really unusual, I was out in my garage doing some things on Saturday morning, and I get this telephone call. And okay, so I picked it up, and here was this company that does MRIs. And so I talked to him on the phone, and I said, and this is really unusual. I'm getting a call on a Saturday. So he said, yeah, he said, I'm in here just cleaning up and doing some things. He said, trying to, get things ready for the first of the week and wanted to know about getting you scheduled. And he said, well, what about Tuesday morning? I said, that's great. And so I'm looking for some relief. I'm looking for some answers. Went to 2 medical doctors. I was going to a chiropractor, and nobody really seemed to know what was happening. So I went to him on Tuesday morning and went on to work. They were very close together, went back to work and finished my day out at work and went home and still hurting quite a bit, nothing any better. And me being me, we had some trees on the property that needed to be cut down for firewood. So my brother, he came down and helped me because I needed to pull them with a vehicle because of the way they were landing. And so we cut those 3 trees down. I cut one of them up, which is a probably 2-foot diameter cherry tree, wild cherry tree, and cut that up. I was rolling it some and still hurting, and got up the next morning and went to work, still hurting. And about 9:30, I got a telephone call that really changed everything. And so I went and got the call. I didn't recognize the number, but I was expecting a call because of the results of the MRI. When I had the MRI, he gave me a DVD disc that had pictures on it, which, I knew that was to take to somebody else. I couldn't look at them. So I got the call, and the individual told me who they were. And so I went outside the tour room and into the hallway where it was quiet. And he shared with me that he had just gotten a telephone call from the radiologist because they found 3 large aneurysms in my abdomen. One on my right and left iliac artery, which at that time I didn't even know what the iliac artery was, which you have your aorta that goes down and it splits off from that, which is called the iliac arteries, which goes down to your femoral arteries. And he shared with me that one of them on the right was very large, and your iliac arteries are typically around 7/8 of an inch to an inch in diameter. I had the aneurysms, the arteries where the aneurysms were at, which is like a bubble on these, was up to 2.5 times larger. And it was very dangerous, chance of rupturing. And he said, you need to go to the ER right away. And I sit down on the bench there and kind of gathered my thoughts. That was one time my firefighter EMT training did not help me. It did not, because that was personal. That was personal. And I knew the dangers of them from my training. And I knew that an aneurysm, depending on where it was at, if it burst, they're almost 100% fatal always. And in my case, it would have been, because nobody would have knew what it was. Nobody would have knew where they were at to put pressure on that. And I would have been, I'd have been gone in a matter of minutes. So I sit down there and, I said a prayer, and I got up and got off the phone, and he asked me for my email address, and I give that to him so he could have the radiologist send me the report. So when I got to the hospital, they could see what he saw and read on that. So I called my wife, and probably not the most wisest decision I ever made, but God was looking out for me. I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital smelling and dirty. So I drove home, took a shower, changed clothes, and her and I went to the hospital. And we went into Sewing Hospital over in Fairborn. I took the disc that had the images on it and give him the written results from the email that the doctor had given me, and shared that with them. And they went and did a CAT scan. And I was in the bed laying there, and the ER doctor come out and pulled up a screen. And he said, this is the artery, your right iliac artery. And he said, I want you to look at this. He said, this is where the artery is separating on the inside, and it is falling down like a flap, and it's creating a blood clot behind it. He said, you need surgery immediately. And he didn't anymore get those words out of his mouth. I looked down to the end of the room, and there stood the squad and the people from the squad. And he said, we're going to send you down to the main campus for them to do surgery. He said, I don't know whether they'll do it tonight or tomorrow, but you need surgery, which I pretty much knew that was what was going to happen. Of course, my wife is in the room with me and heard all of this. So she was there with me in the room, and I see the people from the squad. And so they take me down to the end of the room, put me on the cot, and I couldn't say how many times that, I've been in the back of the squad to help people. This is the first time I was ever back there as a patient. And even though I was talking to them and kind of laughing, and they were was trying to get IVs started, and they were going lights and siren. And I said, why are we going lights and siren? I felt fine other than my leg. He said, you're in critical condition. He said, we need to get to the hospital. My wife is falling in her vehicle, and she did not know exactly what was transpiring. So they get me to the hospital there, and they push me through the door, and I met a group of people standing in their surgery uniforms, and I was not expecting that. And they said, Mr. Liming? I said, yes. I said, and who are you? He said, we're getting ready to do surgery on you. And I took a swallow, and I said, I need a cell phone so my wife can tell my wife. And we did not know at that point, but that surgical team was there ready because they had another surgery that was supposed to happen that was canceled. That's the only reason they were there waiting on me.
Wow.
So I got a cell phone, called my wife, and I told her what was happening. And she said to me, she said, is there some surgeon or somebody I can talk to? So I handed the phone to the surgeon. And I remember my wife asking, can I see him before he goes in? She said, no, you cannot. She said his right iliac artery is separating. He said at any moment it could rupture and he could die right in front of us. So
you heard him, the surgeon say, what's going through your mind?
That was a time I had no fear. And the only thing I can think of is, the Bible tells us in the book of Psalms, 23rd chapter, very popular scriptures. And the Bible tells us that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. I had no fear. And that had to be the grace of God. I had been in operating. I remember going when I was doing my clinicals for my EMS training. I was in operating rooms when they was operating on people. I seen them putting chest tubes in a young woman, seen a lot of things happening. But that time it was entirely different because it was me, but yet I had no fear. Of course, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that if I was to die that day, I knew where I'd go. Had no question about that, no question whatsoever. But more than anything, I was concerned about my family. That was my number one concern. I remember they pushed me into the operating room, which was very close, and they began to work on me. And of course, the first thing they do, they go taking everything off of you and doing various things. And they were trying to get instruments into my veins to monitor my blood vessels, or to monitor my blood pressure. And then a moment later, lights were out. And after that, it was all in God's hands. I told the surgeon later, I said, you were God's hands working on me. And that was about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And around 10 o'clock that night, between 10 and 11 o'clock, they finished the surgery. And they had to go into both of my groin areas, make incisions. They worked frantically. She told my wife after the surgery just to save my life. The other thing they were concerned about was me losing both legs, because if the arteries, which the right one was the worst, it was separating as she got in there, and she referred to it as rupturing. And they told my family, said he wouldn't have lived another day, would not have lived another day. So they worked on me, and now from my aorta down into those iliac arteries, I have Gore-Tex lining, and I am filled full of platinum stents. She told my wife and family that they didn't, at that point, they didn't have no idea how many stents they put in me, because they were just opening them up on the paper on the floor, putting them in me as fast as they can to keep from me rupturing out on the inside. Because if they had ruptured, then they would have had to clamp off the artery to save my life. But then there would have been no blood going to either one of my legs, which would have then resulted in the amputation of my legs, which I cannot imagine what that would have been to woke up and both legs been gone. I'd have looked at it and said, why didn't you just let me die? But God was graceful. And after the surgery, I didn't wake up till sometime around 2:30, between 2:30 and 3:30 the next morning. I woke up and my back was hurting so bad. My back was killing me. And I told myself, my back is hurting me so bad. Because at that point, they knew nothing about the two herniated disc in my back that they found during the MRI. That was like the second or third paragraph down, that they never got to that. They were more concerned about the aneurysms that saved my life. So it was a life-changing event in the aspect that every day realizing that if one thing had happened outside of the way it did, if I'd have went to another chiropractor that I believe, under the impression of the Holy Spirit, called for the MRI, when he called for it, if the individual at the MRI center hadn't called for me on a Saturday, they got that taken care of, and I'd had it done on a Tuesday, they'd have never found the aneurysms. If my daughter and I had postponed that hiking trip again, they'd have never knew about the aneurysms. We had no idea that I had those 3 aneurysms in my stomach. I still have those in my abdomen, and that's because of 2 endo leaks that has fed those with blood. They have worked on them to seal those off, and we believe they have, and prayerfully they're shrinking now. But that's what got me to that point where God was in control of every circumstance. If anything at all had to change by maybe hours or even as much as a day, the surgeon said I would not be here now.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the only way they found him, is because they went looking for what was wrong with the pain in my leg. They brought it about. Now, everybody can believe that life is just a life of chances and circumstances. I believe personally, without a doubt, God can ordain circumstances in our lives to happen so that we are aware of certain conditions like I had to do that. I believe totally, firmly, 100% with everything in my heart, God spared me for a reason. God brought this to our attention that I'm here today. I can't say that I've got any marvelous revelation from God yet as to what that is. He hasn't shared that with me as of yet. But God has a plan. And as long as I stay in that plan, I have nothing to worry about. I had shared with my surgeon, we went back to see her after the surgery, and I looked at her, I said, do you know I could have been with the Lord in heaven right now? And she just looked at me, and I told her how much I appreciated her and her surgical team, and how they were a gift from God to save my life. My wife and family all made out letters and thanking her and presented it to her when we went back and seen her later on after the surgery and everything, let her know how much we appreciate what they were doing and how they were there for God's will to be done in my life to save my life.
Well, and here's the here's where I come into this picture a little bit, because while all this was going on,
yeah,
I just happened to be on vacation with your chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And though, and that's Dr. Matt Roberts with Preble County Chiropractic, who is a very good friend. And we happen to be in Florida, and he's not talking about patients or anything, but he's receiving phone calls as you're receiving phone calls. Yeah. And so I had a front seat picture of what was going on. Don't know who you are, don't know anything about it, but he explains the MRI and these circumstances that were going on. And I mean, I got goosebumps right now sitting here, because I remember where I was sitting when all that was going on. And then all of a sudden now here you are sitting here recording a podcast alive.
Yeah. It's only by the grace of God.
It is by the grace of God. And it's amazing how when we take time to get out of our busy lives and we actually see what God is doing, there are small miracles every hour of the day.
There is.
You know, you had no idea you could have been just a couple minutes away from death.
Could have been.
You know, if that
That's very
hurricane
true.
hadn't hit and done the devastation that it did to close all of the roads and the trails, and you wouldn't have postponed your trip, and then you get back out and you go with your daughter on, you know, an amazing trip that you had prepared for. You have the pain in your legs, you know, all these circumstances start to happen. She recommends going to see Dr. Matt.
Yes, he did.
And, you know, he's, I'm sure, like, hey, let's try this. And then all of a sudden, I mean, just down to the MRI, calling on Saturday, scheduled for Tuesday. And then with the surgery getting canceled, and they wheel you right in, everybody's there waiting.
They are. Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a miracle.
It is. Yeah, it is. So there were so many circumstances that happened and fell right in line to get the results that God wanted. You know, there's no way you can deny this wasn't, you know, God. Just can't happen because it just things happen so much in the process. At the hospital, they kept coming in and they would ask me, said, because, you know, they couldn't figure out why I had these aneurysms. They said, do you smoke? I said, no. Have you ever smoked? No. And I said, why? I said, because this is usually what we see in people that smoke. No, never smoked. And they said, they made comment about Dr. Robertson. They say, we understand your chiropractor asked for the MRI. I said, he saved your life. And so when my wife and I went, after everything had gotten straightened around, I went to see Dr. Roberts. She went with me, and I stood up beside Dr. Roberts, and I put my arm around him, and I looked at my wife. I said, this is my savior. Not my spiritual savior. He's my physical savior because he's the one that called for that. And so he played a part by God in this adventure that brought me to that point. The thing is, I think about now, since all that had happened, if things hadn't happened the way God ordained them, say my daughter and I had went in September of 24, we'd went someplace else. Maybe my legs would have never bothered me. I can't say they would or wouldn't have, but I may have never knew about the aneurysms at all until they would have performed an autopsy. Because when aneurysms happen, nobody knows where it's at. Nobody knows what's going on. So they don't know how to stop it. They don't know how to put pressure points on. They don't know how to, and you'll be gone in minutes. So everything. I'm not saying that the hurricane was God's doing. I'm just saying if we would have moved differently, if our emotions, our steps, anything we had done been different, I wouldn't be here today. That's why every day is a gift to me now. And I treat it that way.
So what do you feel like your purpose is now moving forward?
Once again, I can't say that God has given me, that my purpose has really changed. I think it's just a new dedication to that purpose, to be more dedicated than ever, to share this through this podcast at church, to be able to witness to other people, as we call it in the church field, our testimony of what God has done for me. A lot of people have wonderful testimonies about how God has changed their life. I mean, I can say, and I don't feel like myself, I'm anybody special. I realize we are all special in the eyes of God because we're all his children. But for me, Dennis, I'm not special. I'm only special because of who Christ is. I feel like that I have a testimony to share with other people about God's grace, God's love, putting our trust, our confidence in God, living for God, letting God direct your heart and your life. Let him show you the path he wants you to walk on and the things he can do in your life to minister and to help other people. As we stated earlier, I've been on the fire department a total of around 20 years. People call you when they're hurting, when they need your help. And so going out and helping them, we go to church not to so much be ministered to, but Christ in his ministry, he said, I didn't come to be ministered to, but to minister, to be a servant to other people. Even in our churches, we have the opportunity to minister to other people, to share with them your testimony, how God brought you through this, to give them confidence and strength that they can do it too. because God is no respecter of persons. And what he does for me by his word, he's required to do it to other people. And I would say, if anything, that is just a new commitment or a greater dedication, because most people, when they get my age, they want to retire. I don't want to do that. I've spent over 53 years in a shop. I'm still doing that part-time, but I don't want to continue to do that. I want to be a service to my community, to get more involved in the local church that we're involved in, to be able to help other people.
That's amazing.
Do you have any like Bible verses or anything that you'd want to share with the guest? I mean, you figured you can tell when you walked in about like how strong in faith you are, and then hearing your story, you have anything for us?
Well, I think Proverbs chapter 3, I think it's verses 5 and 6. It says to trust in the Lord with all your might and strength. Put your confidence in him and he'll direct your path. I think the thing is putting your trust in God. The book of Psalms, David writes so many times about putting your trust in God. People in today's life, we put our trust in people, and unfortunately, we're all human. We fail. People will fail us. People will let us down, but God never will. And so when you put your trust in the Lord and put your confidence in him, God won't let you down. We live in a society today where people are hurting, people are addicted to various things in life, and they feel like there's no hope, no reason for living. But I have found in Jesus Christ, he'll give you that reason and that hope for living. The thing is, this life is not just the only life we live. We have a life after this that we will live eternity in some place or another. And this life is a dressing room. It's a place where we prepare for that other life that we live after this life. People can deny that afterlife, but I've been a Christian for so long that there's no way anybody's going to change what I know to be true. So I think that would be the thing, is that people need to put their trust and confidence in God. I see what's going on in our society and around the world today like everybody else. It troubles me. It bothers me. And I'm sure it keeps a lot of people awake at night. But I can say when I go to bed at nights, I say my prayers, I can lay my head down and know that I know the one that's in control. And he's went away. The Bible tells us in John chapter 14, Christ says, I go away to prepare for you a place, that where I am, you may be also. And he says, in my Father's house is many mansions. And he's went to prepare us a place. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. Life is like a book. It has a beginning and it has an ending. And that's where our life is. Our life is made up of chapters. But I am persuaded that in the end actually becomes the beginning of our eternal life with our Lord and Savior. And so that's why I'm living the life that I live today, because he's done that for me. Yes, we have trials, we have tribulations in this life, but Christ says, be of comfort, be of cheer, because he said, I have overcome that. So our life and our process of being spiritual in him should be putting everything we have in him, because he says, I give you a peace that this world can't give you. People will have peace only in this life. And the Bible says there's pleasures in sin for a season, for a short period of time. But in this life, there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of hurt, and a lot of pain. And Christ felt that. He felt what it was to die and to feel the pain and the sickness. And he did all of that for us, so that we would not have to go through that. And then he went to heaven to prepare us a place.
That's awesome.
Amazing story. Last question. If you could sit on a park bench and have a conversation with someone living or deceased, who would it be and why?
That's a very easy question to answer. You would be with my father, my earthly father. As I said, he was 4 years old, or I was 4 years old when he left this world. My dad saw a lot of things in life that few people well, probably no people left today living at the scene. My dad was born in 1901. And of course, you can do the math. He'd be approximately 125 years old. His birthday is coming up March the 1st. And just to be able to sit down and have a conversation with him, because I don't know at what point he took my mom and my brother and I to, it was a church in Xenia, Ohio, called First Pentecostal Church of Xenia. And the pastor there was Reverend Bruce Brooks. And even yet at home, I have newspaper clippings from 1956 and a Bible from that church. And I see so many familiar faces I knew as a young boy, because that's the church I grew up in. When my mom started sending my brother and I back there on the Sunday school bus, and then people would stop and pick me up. And after I got my driver's license, I continued to go there for several years and see people, and people knew me. They remembered me before I remembered myself. They remembered my dad. And that's the person I would want to sit down on the bench just to have a talk with him, knowing that it won't be in this life, but it will be in the next.
Well, there's no doubt your dad is proud of you. Mm-hmm. The man that you are, the family that you raised, your faith. I mean, it's your story is amazing because of, you know, not having that father figure growing up, but your uncle took that place, right? Mm-hmm. And helped to guide you and to shape you and to mold you. And your mom sounds like an amazing woman. She was. And
very committed.
Did so much for you and your older brother.
She was.
And you know, that you could have that faith growing up and just continue. Again, you talked about we all face temptations in life, and we all probably do things we shouldn't have done, but we still maintain that faith.
Yes.
You raise your family. You got a loving wife. Mm-hmm. You do all these things in life. You give back as a chaplain, as a firefighter. You are a servant leader, and that's what I strive to be as a servant leader, because it's easy to not be that. It's hard to be a servant leader. Yeah. It's hard to give up your time beyond work and your family to go out and to take that call at 1 a.m. when there's an accident that you have to go and tend to, and then come back, maybe sleep for an hour and get up and go to work the next day. You know, that's a remarkable thing that you've done throughout your life. And it's amazing. And I think through all that, God blessed you.
Oh, he has. He has tremendously.
But he really blessed you in this last year, you know, by those circumstances. And to show you that, you know, hey, I'm not done with you yet here.
Yeah.
And it's a remarkable story. And, you know, I'm, you know, again, I have goosebumps sitting here because, you know, it's just amazing to have you sitting here when I remember sitting on the front porch hearing what was going on. And it's like
that person.
I don't know who that guy is. I don't know what's going on. And I felt the concern and Matt's voice, just hearing the conversation, and here you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
it is. God has been so good to me. I mean, I have the best wife. I mean, I feel like the best wife in the world she is to me. Very loving, very compassionate. I was on my bicycle going towards Yellow Springs on the bike path one time, and it was a very peaceful morning. I prayed a lot when I was on my bicycle and praying about my wife. And I remember how God spoke to me and told me that she was my gift from him. And I shared with you about my daughter, which she's a lot like me in good ways and bad ways. And she's so special. She runs her own daycare. And our son, he's a tremendous blessing to the whole family. He went to Lee University in Tennessee, got a bachelor and master's degree both. He's pastored churches. He is a minister, and he's just, God's really anointed and blessed his life with such great knowledge of God's word. He just really blessed me. God has just been so good to me. better than what I deserve. And once again, it all goes back to his grace. It's all his grace.
That's amazing. Anything else you got to add?
No, I just can't thank you enough to share your testimony. And
I appreciate the opportunity.
yeah, I love the fact that you say it's a testimony, not your story, because that's how I always view it as we're just a testimony of God, and that's the way we should live it. And,
exactly.
You talk about servant leader, and who are you following in that? Jesus, the ultimate service leader. And the more that I feel like we serve your community and everything, it opens up opportunities for more people to know the gospel, more people to know about Jesus through the way we live and act. So thank you for coming on here.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And I appreciate you guys allowing me this opportunity. I just hope and pray that people hear it, are blessed as much as I have been with it and through this. And just want them to know that God loves us all. He loves us all the same. He died for us, and he will bless our lives and just minister to us and keep us in his grace.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you again, and for sharing this. And I'm excited to see what comes for you, because it's always an amazing thing for us to interview people, and then for the episode to air, and just to get that feedback, because it's not only amazing how many people it helps, because we're just hope that one person that needs to hear it can hear it, but it's amazing the benefit that you will receive, from people reaching out. And it's an awesome experience for Ben and I and Sean and Kevin, just to be able to have this platform to share amazing stories like yours. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, everybody, be sure to like and share and to do all those things. We appreciate all the love and support, and go out and be tempered.
Hi, my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Caitlin's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Caitlin's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Caitlin's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636, locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Caitlin's Glass, the clear choice.
I want to share something that's become a big part of the BeTempered mission, Patreon. Now, if you've never used it before, Patreon is a platform where we can build community together. It's not just about supporting the podcast. It's about having a space where we can connect on a deeper level, encourage one another, and walk this journey of faith, resilience, and perseverance side by side. Here's how it works. You can join as a free member and get access to daily posts, behind-the-scenes updates, encouragement, and some things I don't always put out on other platforms. And if you feel called to support the mission financially, there are different levels where you can do that too. That support helps us keep producing the podcast, creating gear, hosting events, and sharing stories that we believe can truly impact lives. And here's the cool part. Patreon has a free app you can download right on your phone. It works just like Facebook or Instagram, but it's built specifically for our community. You'll be able to scroll through posts, watch videos, listen to content, and interact with others who are on the same journey. At the end of the day, this isn't just about content, it's about connection. It's about building something together, not just me and Ben putting out episodes, but a family of people committed to growing stronger through real stories and real faith. So whether you just want to hop on as a free member or you feel called to support in a bigger way, Patreon is the door into that community. Because at the heart of BeTempered has always been simple, real stories, raw truth, resilient faith, so that even one person out there that hears what they need to hear, and Patreon helps make that possible.